Hello and welcome to the Pasta Podcast, where we talk about nothing but pasta. Today we will not be talking about pasta. Today we'll be talking about books, comics, and reading in general. I'm Gigi. This is
Olivia.
How are you doing, Olivia?
I'm doing just swell, Gigi. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. So, our reading habits haven't been the greatest, I think, at least mine. I feel like we weren't really very big readers in elementary school, but I don't know how you experienced that.
I mean, as you know, in elementary school, I did not read per se. I looked at the pictures, which I think is a very a very popular thing. A lot of people did look at pictures, and I mean, you can tell that I should have read graphic novels as a kid and comic books, but I didn't for some reason.
Yeah.
I think it's because I was like, there's also words in there too, so I don't want to read that.
Yeah. I feel like growing up as a non-reader was kind of odd for me because I did used to read quite a few books in my off time, but it felt like homework to me.
Yeah. See, I feel like schools have that's a huge problem. Like that's a huge flaw in the school system is like they assign you books to read, and since they assign you them, you don't want to read them anymore. Like they give you a deadline. I hate that.
Yeah. I don't know if you remember this or if this is just a figment of my imagination, but do you remember being in elementary school and they would send you home for summer with a book that you had to do a book report on?
Yeah. Did they send us home with a book, or did they just say you have to do a book report?
I think that they said you have to do a book report on this book, but I'm not sure. But I do remember doing one, and like my mom did it. Like I didn't do it.
My mom did it too. You talk about privileged white kids.
Yeah.
But I mean, my brother was a huge reader. He didn't get into reading until he was like a little bit older. Like I want to say like he wasn't super young. He was probably like 10 or 11. I think Harry Potter got him into reading. Harry Potter got me into reading.
And that's the thing is that like big book series, like when they're written well, you can really get into them. But I feel like for me, I can get into some kinds of books, but after getting into different books is difficult for me because it doesn't feel as well written or as like cohesive.
Yeah. What book do you think like was the first book that you were like enticed to read? Like you really wanted to read it?
I don't know if I remember the name of it, but I do remember the subject matter. It was about a teenage girl who was a mermaid. And
I remember this.
Do you remember what the name of that book was?
Don't remember the name, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, I used to love those books. I think I read every single edition, and I loved them, and I pretended that I was her, and I wanted to be a mermaid. It was very enjoyable for me to read, but I think as I got older, I was like, I can't read stuff like that anymore because I'm an adult, or I'm a teenager now. But I never read anything else.
No, I remember you reading it. I'm pretty sure I probably tried to read it, but alas, there was words, so I didn't.
Yeah.
I barely read as a teenager either. I mean, I think that reading in school did not help. And like knowing that you had to read to like take certain tests and you had to get so many points, and I never got the correct amount of points at all, but I still like passed. Because what are they going to do? Just leave me in third grade because I didn't want to read?
Yeah. I think that the way that that schools in the US are structured with the reading system is really like messed up in a way, especially because I don't know if you remember having to read like aloud with the class.
Yeah.
But I remember hating and dreading reading time because I never wanted to get picked for it, especially because like I'm not very good at talking. I've
There
never been very good at talking, and it was worse as a kid.
was always
So,
those nerves. You would always get those nerves like setting
yeah.
in.
I mean, I had those every day of school, but it was worse.
Yeah. No, I feel like I mean, I think that teachers should encourage kids to read. I'm fully for that. But at the same time, don't say, "Here, I'm going to give you The Grapes of Wrath. You're going to read it in 3 weeks, and then we're going to talk about it. And if you say the wrong thing, you're we're going to fail you." Like I think
Yeah.
it doesn't seem right.
I, ironically, this doesn't sound related, but I promise it is. I started rewatching Parks and Recreation today. And in the first episode, she reads from the Phantom Toll Booth. And I don't know if you remember reading that book in school, but it was
Mhm.
one of the few books that I actually enjoyed reading, but I didn't want to admit it.
I remember reading that book. I did a play on it in 7th grade,
Yeah.
and I was the wizard. I was
Why
like
wasn't I
the
invited?
that was during that phase of our life. I might have invited you. I feel like I
I
might
mean,
have.
like, I'm sure they like I don't remember what you invited me to, honestly. If you asked me what place did you go to, I would never be able to answer. There was one where you had a speaking part.
I had, oh my gosh, no. When we did the Phantom Toll Booth, that was like I became a breakthrough artist then. Like, no, it was good because I actually had a few lines, and there was a part where one of the main characters forgot her lines, and me and this other girl on stage helped her remember her lines by creating a whole new scene. And it was great.
That's really nice of you guys.
But yeah, I liked reading the Phantom Toll Booth just because there were so many weird words in it. It seems like it would be like a Tim Burton thing.
Yeah. It was like Shakespeare for kids.
Did you ever get into Shakespeare?
I still hate Shakespeare, and that's only because I never know what he means or what he's saying. I do kind of like the insults that he came up with, though.
Do you know the insults?
I don't remember them off the top of my head, but if I read them, I would be like, that was a Shakespeare insult.
Um, I know one is elf skinned. That's an insult. Um, yeah,
That feels
Shakespeare is great.
weird.
I love Shakespeare. I mean, I had a kind of a weird phase of going through a I love classical theater and I love reading it. Like
Yeah.
I think Anton Chekhov is one of the best writers ever. But I mean, I don't think I've ever forced you to read any of his stuff just because it's also like kind of hard to understand because most of it is translated directly from Russian. But
Yeah.
no, it's intriguing though. Like The Seagull, that's really good. I recommend you read that play because that is a really good play.
I'll put it on my list of 15,000 books that I've never read.
It's not. It's a play, so it's not very long.
Yeah.
I have a book I could loan you. But yeah, Anton Chekhov, Shakespeare is really good. But yeah, I agree. He's really like hard to understand. But and that leads to you having to sit down and annotate all of his things just so you know what he said in the past paragraph.
Yeah. By
But
the time that you translate it on Spark Notes, it's just like just kind of like, oh, I had to do all of this translating and this is what he's trying to say. It
yeah,
feels like you put in a lot of effort for not that much in return, but had I been able to read, I feel like I would have enjoyed the plays.
yeah. I mean, I think that Shakespeare he has a way of like writing for plays, especially that's like it's kind of interesting how he writes it because it's like everything has a meaning. Like
Yeah.
everything. And it's crazy. Like there'll be a comma in a certain spot and it'll be like, that's a beat change. And I was like, whoa, what? But no, he's crazy. He's a, he's a crazy man. He married a very attractive woman. She was in The Devil Wears Prada.
The exact woman? That's crazy.
She aged really well.
She looks great for 230.
Now, what do you think? Once you've entered like your college life, what do you have you read anything?
I've definitely sat down and tried to read a lot of things recently. But I've only read like one book within the past like couple months, and it wasn't a very big book. I actually only read it because I felt Catholic guilt. Um, I went to an antique store with my mom, and this lady, I picked up the book and I looked at it because it had an odd name. Um, it's like happiness at the or makeovers at the counter of happiness or something like that. And it had an odd name, so I picked it up and like I read the like front page where it says like when it was made and everything because I didn't know anything like that. Didn't have anything on the back. Um, and it was published in 2005. It was written in 2005. But a lot of the writings are about her younger life that was in like the 40s or 50s. The lady that was at the antique store saw me pick it up, read the front page, put it down, and then I picked it up again because I read her like birth date as the first year, and I was like, I was just kind of like, um, wait, this was published in 1938, so I picked it back up and I started reading it. And I wasn't really that interested. And then she was like, honey, you can just have that. And I was like, are you sure? And then she was like, yeah, just take it. It's my gift to you. And then when we were checking out, she was also helping, and she was like, oh, honey, don't bring that up because I'm giving it to her. Um, and even though she was only going to sell it for $9, I felt Catholic guilt. So as soon as I got home, I started reading it and I read the whole thing. And it was interesting. It was interesting. It
Okay.
was cute.
What was it about?
Well, it was about it was about women and how we view beauty. It was a lot of like there was letters that she put in there that she thought about sending to like celebrities or like to her granddaughter about beauty or like them acting or something that would be on the subject of beauty. And it was a lot about her struggle to feel beautiful with an upcoming she had an upcoming date for a school reunion, and she was like, I've gotten fat and I'm not pretty anymore, and I was never pretty, and this person was always the best looking person at the school. And when you get to the end of the book, she talks about how she got there and had learned that they were lucky to be there because many of them had died, and they were also lucky to be there because some of them were in prison or some of them were dealing with like family drama and they couldn't make it, and some of them didn't look good. They weren't the ideal subject of beauty anymore. And she learned about their insecurities. She learned about their insecurities and how they also felt like they were not as pretty as they were. And it was a cute book, but I probably wouldn't have ended up reading it had that lady not given it to me.
I don't know. That sounds interesting. Because I mean, I feel like that's a lot of what I study in school is like what's the ideal of beauty and how it can affect different people depending on the circumstances.
Yeah.
I know. I think that's interesting. Um, I mean, I haven't read a book in a while, besides like comic books and stuff. I think the last book I read, well, I read a lot of Star Wars books. Um, and I was reading one. where I got like a few pages into it, but I got distracted and I never picked it back up. I will eventually, but just not right now. The last book I fully read through was probably like Brotherhood, which was and it was another Star Wars book, but it was really good. It was like Anakin and Obi-Wan, and they were like it was like it takes place like a little bit after Attack of the Clones. It was pretty good. But no, I think like the first book that I've read that kind of changed how I view about reading was probably The Odyssey.
Yeah.
Weirdly enough. Have you heard of The Odyssey, Gigi?
Um, I don't think I read it or anything, but I'm pretty sure that you've told me about your experience reading it or
Yeah.
how you didn't know what something meant, so you asked your grandpa about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, The Odyssey is a very old book. It was written by Homer. I don't know the exact year, but it was definitely before Jesus. It's a very old book, and it is, you don't realize how many like stories and stuff are written based on that book specifically.
Yeah.
Like, um, even like if they're not meaning to do it, the like people write it anyway. Like, would they know? Like, I feel like a lot of like Lord of the Rings, as much as people don't want to agree with me, a lot of Lord of the Rings is based on like religion, and it's based on um the Odyssey. I think a lot of the Odyssey plays into that because I mean the Odyssey is like this man who it takes place right after the Battle of Troy, and he's like gone on this 20-year long excursion trying to get back to his wife, but he's kind of a sleaze, so he goes and does his own thing. As to say, well, I guess he gets seduced. He gets seduced by like sirens and stuff. And he like, in other words, he gets very distracted. And he makes it back, and it's a really good ending because like his wife has like denied these suitors for the past 20 years because they all want to marry her because Odysseus is gone. And then he comes back and he slays all the suitors with his son, and it's just this epic moment of like family. But it's a really good book, and it's a big poem. The whole thing is just a poem, which I think is really kind of sick.
Yeah. Well, you know what they say, a family that slays together.
But yeah,
Anyways.
my grandpa helped me understand that book kind of, and he helped me like go through it and like dissect certain things because there would be like a single sentence I would read and I did not understand it because me and my mom were reading it together, and I would not understand it, and she would be like, "Let's call him up," and we did, and he'd answer. It was good. It was fun, but that's the first book that I kind of like. It kind of like opened the world to me of like, oh, this is what books are. They're not just words on paper. You
Yeah.
know, I feel like that and Harry Potter is what truly got me into reading.
Yeah.
And I think you should read Harry Potter because those are, I don't know, they might be some of the best books I've read. And um, I know there's like a lot of stigma around it because of J.K. Rowling and whatever, but honestly, you can't deny they're not fantastic books because they are.
Yeah.
You can't lie that like, I mean, when I was reading the books, I just remember like she would bring up a character that has not been brought up since the first book, and I'm like, how did she even remember that character? Like, I don't know,
Yeah.
that's good writing to me.
Yeah. I can't even remember the characters I come up with in my head.
Your OCs.
The OCs that I made yesterday. Don't know who they were.
But yeah, I mean, my favorite book out of the whole Harry Potter books was definitely the seventh one. And I hope that many people will agree with me on that because, oh my gosh, it is one of the most fantastic books ever.
Yeah.
And I remember that was like the first time I like my screen time. Um, they would like it would send it to me and it would be like down 110%, and I'd be like, what?
Yeah. I know when you're not on your phone every day, it's insane how much your screen time will be down. Like if you still get those notifications, it'll like if you've been working or something or like you've been reading or even just been on your computer than your more than your phone, it'll be like down 56%. Like was I really using my phone that much?
And I don't know. It feels like getting you into that universe, it creates inspiration for others to write other things. I mean, I know that she was probably inspired by Lord of the Rings, Lord of the Rings inspired by the Odyssey, whatever.
Yeah.
Everything comes from something. I was just talking about this with my brother. Nothing is original, and that's fine. It doesn't have to be. Whether it's subconscious or not, nothing has to be original. It doesn't have to be stolen, like ripped off completely. But if you have a idea in your mind and you're like, oh shoot, that sounds really similar to something that already exists, go for it.
Yeah.
If it's not the same names and the same characters, you thought of it, you didn't think I'm going to rip that off, then it's fine.
Yeah. The Pasta Podcast is not an original name at all. This is one of the least original names we could come up with, but it means a lot to us.
It was literally the first name and we stuck with it.
Yeah. Well, getting back onto the point of books, I think that's funny that a lot of our books growing up was related to fantasy and like things that could happen in a magical world, when we now read comics more often than books about superheroes.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it is a form of escapism, isn't it?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I would not want to live in a world where Batman has to save me, you know?
Yeah. You wouldn't want to live in Gotham.
I would not want to live in Gotham.
Too much crime.
Oh my god, some of the stuff there. Oh my god. Like some of the comics that I read, I'm like, that's just there and they're okay with that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird how chill these people are with staying in a city that like almost like monthly somebody like commits arson on a building and tries to kill a bunch of people or kidnaps a bunch of people and like kills them in one of the most like heinous ways possible.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, you know what, my rent is due soon, I can't get out of this lease, you know.
Well, and I mean, think about it. They got the richest guy there to think, man, this place sucks so bad that I have to do something about it. And the police aren't doing anything, so I gotta be my own police.
Yeah.
I mean, I know in like a lot of DC comics, they're trying to be like, the cops are trying to help, but they're
Yeah.
not succeeding. And they make that very obvious that they're not succeeding, or else they wouldn't have the Bat family. It's a
Yeah.
Bat family. It's not just Batman. It's him and his 17 kids.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of them anyway. But just think about that. I mean, I feel like we take for granted the world we live in because at least it's not that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you lived in like LA or San Francisco, I feel like the crime rate would be a lot higher. So it might feel like that, but
Yeah.
you know, at least we don't live in San Francisco, right?
Haha. Well, what do you think your favorite comic book is that you've ever read?
I feel like maybe I have an emotional attachment to it because it was the first one that I read, and you recommended that I would read a comic for her. But Batgirl Year One, I really liked. Like it held my attention pretty constantly, and I still think that you should read it.
Yeah, I have yet to read it. It is on my list. I read Batgirl Rebirth, which I actually really liked. I know that current Batgirl is not. A lot of people don't like her because she isn't. She's like able-bodied now, and people don't really like that because they wanted to have a disabled superhero, which I get.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's not the worst thing to promote healing.
Yeah.
But that's a whole other thing for another topic. Um, but no, I really like Barbara Gordon Batgirl. I think she's really cool. I think Oracle is really cool. But I don't know. I just read Stephanie Brown Batgirl, the 2006, I think it was. And man, that was really good. That was really good. It might have been
Yeah.
2009.
See, I feel like I must be messed up in some way because the Nightwing comics that I've tried to get into, I don't think I'm into them as much, and I think it's literally just because he is not talking about his dead parents as much. That held my attention for the majority of the Nightwing comics. Him having like depression and like being upset that he's not like holding all of this grief in like Batman is, and that's not making him a better person or anything like that. And like the flashbacks to when he was in the circus, like that was holding my attention for so long. And
Mm.
then he was just like, "Nah, moving on. I'm being a detective again." And it's like, okay,
Well, you're on the Grayson comics now, huh? Oh wait, you're not on them anymore.
no, I'm on the Grayson comic still. The ones
But
that have weird cover art but really good panels.
really weird cover art, but really good regular art.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No hate to the artist. I can do better.
I do agree with you on that. It is. I mean, Nightwing's history is really interesting,
Yeah.
and it's really cool to see him progress. I think, though, and I know the ones you're. I really liked the Grayson comics, but I also haven't read them in a while. Um,
Yeah.
but the Nightwing Rebirth was pretty good, purely because you see him grow so much. Like you see him become like almost like I don't want to say this, but I want to say this. You see him become better than Batman.
No, you should say it. You should say it.
Like I love Batman. Batman's great, but he's like stuck. Like he can't escape his
Yeah.
childhood. That's like the whole thing. It's just like he's stuck.
Yeah. I feel like it's also interesting because Nightwing gets to go on like these little adventures outside of Gotham, but Batman literally can't leave because he's Bruce Wayne. He's the richest man on Earth. If people would know where he's going,
Yeah.
or he's the richest man in Gotham, whatever. He's rich. People know where he goes.
But anyways, changing the subject, we can save talking about DC for a whole other episode because I feel like we could definitely fill up a whole episode with that.
Yeah.
But back to like the whole like comic books and books and things. Um, I think that comic books are good for kids in a sense of it introduces them into reading in not such a harsh way.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there is some gruesome stuff out there in comics that kids should
Yeah.
not be reading.
I mean, that's the thing is like some kids books, like even though like most kids books that have like pictures and stuff are made for like toddlers, I feel like more kids books should be created that are for older children but still have pictures because it introduces like you're still allowed to like see what's happening, but maybe just a little bit less so that you have to read for the context. And that way the child can like build upon like a world where you can see it in your head as you're reading it.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's why it's so important to make fantasy books.
Yeah.
Because without fantasy books, I mean, kids would not have. I feel like if there wasn't any fantasy in life, then like people would just be dull.
Yeah.
And I like how I've never played Dungeons and Dragons my entire life, but I think it's a fantastic idea. I think it's really cool that like people create like these whole entire worlds.
Yeah,
Like that's nuts. They created their
I
own
know.
world.
I wish that I was smart enough to do all that stuff, because although like a 3 or more hour like board game sounds a little bit exhausting to me, I would like love to have that kind of experience because it seems so unique. Like I feel
Mhm.
like when I was younger, I was like, "Ew, Dungeons and Dragons," but now that I'm older, I'm like, I want to be one of those people. That sounds so cool, and they come up with
Yeah.
like the craziest stuff. These adventures sound awesome.
I know. Well, and on building off of that, I feel like that's there's a stigma around certain ideas that you have as a kid, especially us when we were kids. But
Yeah.
I think that like cosplaying Dungeons and Dragons, going to conventions to meet all these other people who are just like you. I think that's great. And I don't like as a kid, not as a kid, but as like a teenager, like as a stuck up teenager, you would hear like people doing cosplay and you'd be like, "Oh, they're such a nerd. What a nerd."
Yeah.
But like
Like
how
they're so childish. They're playing dress up and they're going out in it,
yeah, but
even
that
though we
sounds
did that in the comfort of our homes and took pictures.
but how fun would that be? It's Halloween every day.
Yeah. I have so much respect to people who not only cosplay, but the people that cosplay and make their own costumes and like do their own makeup and stuff. I
Right?
would be tired just doing the makeup,
Yeah.
like even
No,
if it was
it's
minimal.
crazy. They have to make the wigs, do the makeup, make the whole entire outfit. I mean, how insane is that?
Yeah.
Like you've got to have
Like,
like a good amount of talent to do that.
yeah. And like some of those costumes and cosplays are like 3 or more layers deep. Like you have to put on so many layers of clothing and you have to put it on the correct way. It must take them like an hour and a half in order to just get dressed.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like that's all that. It all comes from like I mean, I feel like fantasy books make people inspired to make video games, and then video games inspire people to make cosplay or to make characters, whatever. But I mean, I think that that's why it's so important to have younger people read fantasy books because without that, then I feel like there would be this continuous stigma around, um, like just like playing pretend.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like I don't know why that's
fantasy
such a bad thing.
fantasy is important. It really is, cuz could you imagine like going to bed at night and like dreaming about I don't know what you do tomorrow?
Yeah.
That sounds so boring. It's
Hmm.
like, ooh, what am I going to have for breakfast tomorrow? Instead of like, what kind of magical powers am I going to have in my dream tonight? You know?
Hmm.
This is the reason that flying in dreams is so like, oh my God, how can you do that? How do you teach your body to do that? I've never heard somebody be like, can I teach myself to lucid dream in order to eat cereal? But I always hear people being like, how do you fly in your dreams?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I feel like books with like that sort of like escapism in them, like I feel like you're introduced to that at a very young age. Like I know that I try. I don't remember if you read them too, but I was very into those fairy books
Oh, I read those.
because I remember
100%.
giving you one. I gave you like Gabriella the Ice Fairy or something.
I remember that. Oh my God. Hidden memory.
No, and I think that you gave it back to me.
I think I think I might have, but I also think I bought more books.
You, I maybe I don't remember the outcome, but I remember reading that whole book all the way through.
Yeah, I think I read the whole book all the way through. I definitely bought at least one more book, or maybe I borrowed another book from you,
Yeah,
but I think that was like the most I had ever read at that time because I was
me
keeping up
too.
to date on all those series. like Dork Diaries, that series,
Mm.
the Mermaid series. I was keeping up to date on all of those, and it was probably the most amount of books I've ever had. And now I can't even like fill one shelf of a bookcase with all the books I have. I
That's
mean, maybe if I like stretch the word books to be like magazines and um, picture books, pictures of paintings that artists made.
you just
Got a couple of those.
I can't believe that you just brushed by Dork Diaries. That book, I read all of those books. I loved those.
I read those books because I was like, this is the girl version of Diary of a Wimpy
There
Kid.
would
And
be
it
kid.
was.
Yeah,
It
it fully
was.
was.
But also, Diary of a Wimpy Kid was good too, and I didn't want to admit it, so I read Dork Diaries instead. But I definitely read the first one.
I read the purple one. I don't remember what it was called.
The purple one.
Yeah, hold on. Let me see if I can find it. Because I remember reading through that whole entire thing and being like, "Oh my gosh, this is a good book." And I'm like,
Yeah.
I was going through that tomboy phase,
Mm-hmm.
and just being like, I'm into the Tyra Wimpy Kid.
Yeah.
The ugly truth.
I wonder why you picked it up. No, I'm just kidding. I love
Oh,
you. You know this.
I forget what that book was about, but I just remember hating Roderick and hating Manny. And now when I like recently rewatched the movie, I was like, I hate what's his name, Greg. I hate Greg, and I love Roderick, and I love Manny.
Yeah, I feel like every time that I see anything about the movie, everybody's like, oh my god, Roderick, you know?
Yeah,
Although I don't know if it's because usually I see that stuff on Twitter. I don't know if it's just Twitter people being like oddly attracted to him or something.
I think it is. Hashtag not my Roderick.
I don't I don't think he's attractive. I think that he's just a funny little goofball in all the clips I've seen him
You
in.
know why people liked him? Because he was an emo drummer. That's
He
why
was just
people
an emo boy.
That's why people liked him. And
He
he's
was
an
the online
Oppenheimer.
Darkiplier all along.
He was an Oppenheimer.
He was?
It's like his first movie in years.
Was he playing the explosion? No, he's the reason that they blew it up. I'm
I've
Roderick.
become Roderick, destroyer of Greg's. Man.
Not Danny Gonzalez's fan base.
Oh man. What books would you recommend, Gigi?
I mean, as a non-reader, I honestly recommend those fantasy books I used to read as a kid. Dork Diaries. We gotta figure out the name of that fairy series. Do you think I could look it up?
Isn't it like the Rainbow? Oh yeah, the Rainbow Magic.
Rainbow Magic?
Yeah, that's what they were called.
Ruby the Red Fairy. I had that one.
Amber the Orange Fairy. Oh my god, that takes me back to such a specific place in my life. Like I used to go to this store, this bookstore with my mom and my brother, and it was all like it was called paperbacks. So it was like all paperback books everywhere.
Yeah.
And they were like at a discount, I'm pretty sure. And there was a kids section in the back that I always went to, and I would just sit there looking for fairy books the whole entire time. And every time I found a fairy book, I would, like the one I hadn't had yet, I would pick it up and I would give it to my mom and say, I want this. And since it was a book, she was like, okay, I'll get it for you.
Yeah. I know.
I wish I kept them.
I think it's funny because my mom is still kind of like that. Whenever we go to a bookstore together, they're like, she's like, oh, you think this is interesting? We could get it. I'll buy it for you. And I'm like, Mom, you and I both know that I'm not going to sit down and read this. We both know this. I still
Yeah,
have books about art that I have not read. They probably have like a paragraph of sentences in them, and I haven't read them. I've never opened them. I don't know what the cover page looks like.
well, there's always time to start. My first book I read all the way through. I remember it very specifically. It was called Jenny and the Cat Club, and that book smacks.
I feel like I remember that book. Did we find that book in your closet recently?
Yes, we did.
That's why I remember it.
Yeah. And that book smacks. We named my cat after one of the cats in there.
Which one?
Sinbad.
Sinbad?
Sinbad. And in the book, because Jenny's a cat, and she ice skates, and that's like her thing. And she meets all these cats who
Oh.
have these talents. And she meets Sinbad, who's a boxer. How awesome is that?
I've never seen your cat box.
You gotta get into Jenny and the Cat Club lore. Oh my god, so good.
I'll get into the lore. Um, the thing with reading with me is that I don't think I mentioned this yet, but I've got a Doctor Who book right next to me. I've probably read the first 3 chapters about 1 billion times because I read it and then I stop reading it because I'm bored, and then 3 months later I read it because I can't just pick up from where I left off because I don't remember anything. And then I get bored at the same time because I'm like, I already read this and now I'm reading it again. And then the cycle continues, and I don't know if I'm just supposed to skip that section of the book or not.
I say skip it.
The thing is that it's called Doctor Who: The Silent Stars Go By, Touched by an Angel. So it has 2 different stories in it. I could just skip to Touched by an Angel. It would probably be more interesting. But I know the things that are happening in the book that are and I need to know how it ends. But also I don't want to just read the end because then it won't be satisfying. And then I also don't
Yeah.
want to reread what I read already.
No, I say just skip ahead. Skip to the part that you find the most interesting, because if it's a vicious cycle like that, then you want to put an end to it.
Yeah. Why not
Just skip
torture
it.
myself more? Why can't I do that?
Okay, here's a question for you. What is a book that you've actively either cried in or felt an emotional connection towards the book?
I don't remember what book it was, but the reason that I have this Doctor Who book is because I used to read a lot of Doctor Who books. Because they make those, like your Star Wars books, they make Doctor Who books. And I don't remember which one it was because it was pre-fire, so it was in my house during the fire, so I don't have it anymore. But I remember I felt like such an emotional connection. I thought about it all the time, and I thought about how like the characters in the book would interact. And the thing about the Doctor Who books are that they have really good writing. At least all the ones that I've read, they have really good writing.
Yeah.
Even the one that I have read over and over again, I can hear the characters saying them because it sounds like their dialogue. So
That's cool.
yeah. So basically any Doctor Who book or scene probably cried or had an emotional connection to it.
Yeah. No, I like the idea of like hearing their voices as you're reading.
Yeah.
Like, there was all Batman comics I ever read. I read them in Kevin Conroy's voice, which was the guy who did the Batman animated series. He did the Batman Arkham games. He did all this. He voiced Batman a lot, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
He recently died.
Oh yeah.
And it was really sad for me because I had such like a connection to like his voice, and like to me his voice was Batman.
Yeah.
And so whenever it was just kind of crazy because like I would always read comics in his voice, and then like when he died I was like it just kind of hurt in a different way, because it was like it's like hearing Batman died, it's
Yeah.
it's just weird. But I mean, I feel like I know the first book that I've ever cried in was the novelization of Revenge of the Sith, Star Wars, Revenge of
Yeah.
the Sith. Um, and I don't know why. I mean, I haven't cried in that movie in so long. I was crying because like there was just a way that like it was being written that I was like, this is something I've never thought about before.
Yeah.
You know, like the description behind like why this person's doing this and how this is happening because of this, it's just emotional.
Yeah. I mean, I feel that way when I read I sometimes I read Doctor Who scripts in order to like find quotes or something from the show so that,
Yeah.
I don't mess them up. And sometimes you find like moments where they're given stage directions, and the stage directions hurt more than the actual actions that you see on screen.
Yes. Yes, I so agree with that.
I think I sent you one once because I was like, I had no idea this was the stage direction for the scene. Clara Oswald dies in the scene in Face the Raven, and it's like a very emotional scene, obviously, because somebody's dying. Even if you haven't seen it, you know that it's emotional because of a death. Um, but the stage directions are in the whole time she's saying "Let me be brave," and she's trying to be strong for the doctor. But in the stage directions, it says that as soon as she turns away from the doctor, all of the all of the braveness that she's built up and all like the walls come down where she's trying to be strong for him and she's not strong anymore and she's scared. And it
Oh,
hurts me because it's like, but I thought you were still being brave. I thought that was the whole point.
oh, that's
It
so
just hurts so
sad.
much. Yeah.
I agree. I mean, I feel like reading scripts to things helps you to understand more. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm the only one who does this, but and my brother's. I told him I was doing this, and he was like, "You're such a nerd." And I was like, "I know," but I was reading the script to a character in the game Oblivion, and I was reading Martin Septim's lines, just because he was my favorite character, and I was like, I think I was like looking for a quote to put in my bio or something, and so I was trying to find something he said, and I can't say anything like explicitly. Oh, wait, yes, I can. Um, he's just because he is. This isn't really book related, but it's reading related, so you can leave it in, Gigi. But it's just Martin Septim. He's a very complicated character. It's like the whole story is like him trying, like, he lived his whole life as a farm boy. Like, he was a priest. He didn't really like think anything of himself. He just thought he was like a humble priest, you know? And you figure out he's the last heir to the emperor, so he has to be the emperor because he just died, and with the emperor's dying words he tells you to go and find his long lost son. And when you find Martin, he's like a humble priest. He's done nothing in his life, and then he slowly over the course of the game becomes more and more like he's the emperor, like he is the emperor, like you
Yeah.
can see it in him, and it's really cool. And there's a line that he says, because there's this whole stuff that I'm not going to explain, but you basically have to get this amulet for him, and by giving him the amulet it makes him the emperor. And he puts on the amulet and he says, it is my destiny after all, why deny my destiny? And it always just like, it makes me like swallow.
Yeah.
Like it makes me really like, it's so cool to see, like, I guess it's like just like character development, really. Like you just
Yeah.
see him over the course of the entire game like build up confidence to become the emperor, and it's incredible. And I feel like that's the same effect I got with the Harry Potter books. That's who Harry Potter was to me. Like he started off as like a guy who like didn't know any better, but he saved the world at the end, ultimately.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know a lot of people are like, Voldemort was just trying to destroy school. He was trying to destroy the world. Harry Potter was just so good that he didn't let him get to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And he was a 17-year-old boy.
Yeah. I feel like the thing about like movies and TV shows and books is that they are kind of just all the same because they start out with writing, although the books end with writing, but they they start off with writing, and when you have like good writing foundation, then you have a good movie or TV show, and it really depends on how you've written something.
Yeah.
Um, Whereas when you read a bad book, you'd be like, wow, the writing on this is awful. But when you see a bad TV show, you're like, wow, the writing on this is awful and the actors can't act, you know?
That's so true. Because bad writing reflects on the actor.
And the thing is that character writing is so important. When you have established characters, it's very, like, it's sometimes it's hard to keep that character within what they're supposed to be. But, like, not to talk about Doctor Who again, but I'm going to do it. Um, the way that they have written the Master in the new Doctor Who series, the modern Doctor Who series, is very, like, at the very beginning, it's like he's evil. He's his rival. He's the only other Time Lord other than the Doctor, and they're rivals, and they hate each other. Except they don't really hate each other, or at least the Master hates the Doctor, but the Doctor doesn't hate the Master because they used to be friends. But then the Master regenerates into Missy, which is already it's already controversial for me to say that because people have been debating where the Spy Master, which is the new Master, and Missy fit in, of which one comes first. But either way,
It's fine.
when Missy is introduced, everything changes a little bit because she tries to be a better person. And I feel like there's so much more depth because they stayed within the confines of who the Master is supposed to be, but they branched out and showed the deep history that they have with each other of how their relationship is, because they're really not enemies. They're not friends. They just have such a deep bond that they can't be without each other, really.
Yeah.
They're important to
Like
each
one
other.
can't exist without the other.
Yeah.
Yin and yang. But no, I think that's why good writing is so important to TV shows.
Yeah.
So that you can see that, you know?
Yeah.
But I feel like a really important part of like being into movies and being into TV shows is the writing. And I mean, that's why you like Doctor Who, because it has good writing. That's why I like Star Wars, because it has really good writing. And you're not going to like it unless it doesn't. But also, that being said, it is completely a matter of opinion what's good and what isn't.
Yeah. Like I think that Community has some good writing, but personally, I hate the characters too much to get into it. I know that people are going to be very mad at me for saying that
I don't think
because
it has good writing.
I'm I mean, it's debatable. I think that there are like a sufficient amount of jokes, and like I think as you get farther into the series it's supposed to get like better and more cohesive and more copacetic. I'm using a lot of words that I don't understand, so I don't
Big
know if that was
words.
legible, but
I
but
know what you mean, though.
yeah. Um, but
It's a
for
matter of
me, it
opinion,
was
though.
just, yeah, it was just a matter of opinion that I just didn't really enjoy the show, so I stopped watching it after like 21 episodes. I gave it a good try. My brother loves the show. He was like, "You've got to watch until at least this episode before you stop." And I was like, "I don't want to." And then I did it anyways. And I left once in the show. And I'm
Well,
sorry,
I
but
think I think, without the difference of opinion, we wouldn't have more than one TV shows. Because if we all like the same show, we'd just be watching one.
Yeah.
So it's like it's a good thing that we have all these different shows. It's a good thing that we have opinions, but at the same time, don't go telling somebody they can't watch a show because you don't like it.
Yeah.
Do you ever have that?
Yeah. Cause like I feel like a lot of the and this is kind of a common thing in the Doctor Who fandom. I feel like a lot of the older viewers mainly, but some of the newer viewers are like, you have to watch classic Who in order to finish, to like understand it or something like that. Like you have to like it. But I watched again like 20 episodes of the very first season, and I really just couldn't get into it. I thought it was too slow. They have like 50 episodes a season, by the way, and they're all still like 50 minutes long. They did seasons a lot differently back in the 60s. There's like 26 seasons of Classic Who that are just like that. I mean, like lengthwise, not like, I'm sure that the later seasons are better, like story wise or something, but a lot of the original viewers needs are like, you have to like that one in order to like this one, or even like you have to like the classic Who but not the modern Who. The modern Who is like trash or whatever. So
Well, that's how books are too. The
yeah.
exact same way. Like, everybody just praises Lord of the Rings, and rightfully so. It is a like they are decently good books. I am not going to speak too much on them because I have not read them, but I do have a very talkative brother who has read them. Um, I mean, he enjoyed it. He really did. But I think that Harry Potter spoke to him more,
Yeah.
and it might be because we grew up with Harry Potter and we didn't grow up with Lord of the Rings. Like the last few years, we've been getting into Lord of the Rings. But I, I don't know. I feel like if you really like something, like you know that you like it, you'll like it right away,
Yeah.
and you'll be into it right away. You know,
Yeah.
like with I mean, I've gotten a few pages into The Hobbit, and it doesn't have the same effect for me. It really doesn't, and that's fine. That's fine for me to have that opinion.
Yeah.
I don't have to be all so excited to hear about short people walking across a continent. That's okay.
Yeah.
The rest of the world will survive. But also, it's like you shouldn't like I just hear people are like, oh, Lord of the Rings is the perfect book series ever. Nothing can ever top it. And also, there's like no spin-offs, and that's what makes it good because there's no spin-offs. And I was like, okay, well, Lord of the Rings is a spin-off
Yeah.
because The Hobbit was first, not movie-wise, but book-wise, The Hobbit was first, and then Lord of the Rings happened because people wanted to know more about the elves.
Yeah.
And then on top of it, Tolkien wrote like um I don't really know that much about it, but I know that he wrote like books on the Elvish language. And I'm like, dude, that's a spin-off.
Yeah.
Having a spin-off doesn't make it bad. I mean, are there any like Doctor Who book spin-offs or show spin-offs? I mean, I know
Yeah.
the
There's
main show is a spin-off, isn't it?
which one?
The modern Doctor Who.
Well, yeah, that's a spin-off. Like it doesn't like it does continue the story of of the classic Who, but like it stops, like it skips over the war and everything that happens in that time. So it is kind of, you could argue that it's a separate universe, I guess, like if you're a classic Who fan and you don't like the canon that is made in the modern Who, but
Mm-hmm.
it is some sort of a spin-off. And also there's like the Sarah Jane Adventures. That's one of his companions in the classic Who, and she also appears in modern Who. Um, Torchwood is an institution in the Doctor Who universe, and they made a spinoff by the same name. There's like a billion more. They're still making book spin-offs. I just ordered 3 Doctor Who comics that I don't even know if I'm going to read, but they're coming tomorrow.
But the point is that there's going to be people who want to have money grabs no matter what.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
but some of them are good money grabs.
Oh yeah, that's where I'm getting to. It's like, if like it expands on the lore and it's interesting, then I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Well, with that being said, how should we tell the people watching to leave their favorite book in the comments?
Yeah, leave your favorite book in the comments. Leave your favorite comics in the comments.
Tongue twister.
Yeah. You know, just you know what? Just share everything. Tell me about your mom. Just tell me everything. I would like to know. I also like we've given book recommendations, so it's your turn, Pasta Fam.
Yeah, tell us something about what you like to read.
Yeah,
and make sure that you like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. Hit the notification button. And I don't just mean hit the notification button. I mean hit the notification button and then press all. Sorry.
You don't want all of them because some of them are annoying. You just want some all.
Yeah, but when you leave it up to YouTube, they never give you the right ones.
Eventually, we're gonna try to work on migrating towards other podcast platforms. Yeah. But for now, we're just sticking to YouTube.
Yeah, it seems really weird getting onto like Apple Podcasts. I haven't even touched Spotify podcasts. I think that will be more of the same though.
Yeah, but we will get to it eventually. So all you listeners out there will have easier ways to listen to us.
Yeah.
And to hear our nice, soothing voices.
Yeah.
Should I wrap us up, Juge?
Go ahead, Olivia.
All right, that's all for today. Thank you for being a fellow pasta lover, pasta fam. We love you. We miss you. We hope you eat some good pasta tonight. Good night.